What are the common reasons for redundancy? When there is an economic downturn, you remember what happened when Corona came?
Yeah.
Employers have no control over this. They had to let people go. And then there is the other reason for commercial judgment. If the company is not doing well and you realize we have too many people, too many employees, then the best thing to do is cut down, revive the company, and get people back. Those who will come back, not those who lap to the water with it. Then there is some work also just ceases to be useful to an organization. With AI coming in, a lot of the works that are done by human beings today are going to be done by machines. So those have to go, and the people must be laid. Redundancy will take place. Then there is reorganization of an organization. Change management is coming in. There are market dynamics that just affect how an organization is run, and therefore the requirement to cut down on employees. I want to run us through the steps for redundancy so that we understand very well. Because many times organizations lose cases in court because they have not followed procedure.
Not because the courts are always for employees.
No.
Because that is the conversation you hear.
Yes.
They fail
If
the
an
right
employee
procedure.
goes to court, the employer is most likely to lose because courts always favor employees.
Yes.
You're debunking that myth.
Yes, because you know why? Court is about process.
Yes.
And both the law and best practice have given us the processes we follow for several procedures for employees, redundancy being one of them. Because the first thing you're supposed to do, give a notice.
Yes.
Write to employees and say,
Yeah.
we're going to be having a redundancy.
All the employees.
Yes.
Not the one you plan
No.
to actually declare redundant.
Yes.
Yes.
Then after that, do a letter to the labor office within 14 days to say, as an organization, we are considering a redundancy because. Number 3, now do the employee notice. Ross, we may be doing a redundancy on you. Do consultations with employees. Bring in counselors to help employees come to the realization that my job is actually ending.
Come to terms with the
Come
idea.
to terms with it.
Let it settle in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is very difficult. Very difficult. Having an employee come to terms with it and say, okay. The okay may never come actually. They may leave when they are still coming to terms with it.
Yes.
Because it's not a very easy thing to deal with. They didn't expect it. They didn't see it coming. They didn't think it would be them. But finally it is them. Okay? Then the next thing, after the consultations and all the, everything has been done to create the environment to help people to come to terms with it, you now do the selection of those who are leaving. So remember, the notice was to the organization. Employee notice was to each person individually, not saying you are going, but saying there is a redundancy coming.
Yes.
Slowly by slowly, you're putting it into people's minds to say, I could be.
Amongst
It might
them.
happen.
Yes, it might be, Then after the consultations, then you do the selection and you terminate.
It reminds me, I'm sorry to use this, it
Yes.
reminds me of when HIV was an epidemic. And when you went to test, they would actually say, if you have it, this is the expectation how to go forward. I think you ilikuwa inaingia kwa hii masikio, inatoka kwa hii masikio ngine.
It was not practical.
But it was important.
Yeah.
While when you look at right now, where people can just get a test and do it at home.
So
that utapambana na hali yako.
Yeah.
But you see, that time, I think it was to prepare people psychologically.
Yes.
Because then we hadn't had a lot of, training on it. We didn't know the
Awareness.
effects. At that point, you would imagine HIV equals death immediately. We didn't have info.
Yes.
And that's the same thing happening here. That because you don't have the info that it could be you, it is helping to prepare you just in case you're one of them.
Why do employees shy away from that process? Because I see how intricate it is, and I know people will be going to this video and listening and re-listening again.
Yes.
Why do employees shy away from this important process? Or they just don't want the bulk of the responsibility?
You mean employers?
Yes, employers, sorry.
I think because it's in the law.
Yes.
So unless an employer doesn't want to face it, face it,
right,
and get questions from the employees, Because even when you explain the why a redundancy, people will still come to ask you. So why now? Isn't there something you can do than sending us away? Employers don't want to face the reality. But it is reality. I mean, you can't run away from it. And you'd rather follow this step by step as required by law than later have a problem and have to pay people for wrongful termination, you know? So you'd rather just follow it and ensure. And by the way, it doesn't cost an employer much to do this. Right into the labor office. You may have a month of, could I say, delayed productivity, because when something like this is hanging in the air, people also we don't expect them to work to their full capacity. So yes, as this is going on, you could have a reduction in productivity, but that is the cost that we would pay for having a redundancy done.
But still on that point, Sharon, I mean, apart from just writing to the organization and whatnot, the importance of even sitting down with employees and letting them know the situation, the current situation of the company. Sometimes you're just left with assumptions. Oh, I think what watafutwa, or I think this is where we are. So what's the importance of that? Of just sitting down and letting the employees know, or the full organization to know that this is where the company is, this is where we are headed to, and this is what might happen.
In relation to what she's saying, it's tied down. I've had cases where employees are saying, we demand to know the financial situation of the organization. So to how much of that information is a right for them to know, and what needs to be secret from a HR point of view, where, you know, do we just share everything about the organization, and what are the repercussions of sharing everything to the organization? And if we must share as employers, for example, how much do you share? How much do you not share?
Okay, good questions. So consultations was my number 4. It was my number 4. After you've given employee notification that there will be a redundancy coming. Now, the importance of those consultations are several. One, you'll be complying with what the law expects you to do. So you're just doing it because you're supposed to do it. Number 2 is you will be helping employees understand and come to terms, like we said, on this thing that is going to be happening, that is going to have such an impact in their lives. Number 3, you will be treating employees as human beings with feelings, with flesh and blood, you know, with how do I put it? I mean, like people. You'll be having a human face to that redundancy. And then number 4 is you'll be helping not just those who are leaving, but even those who are staying, because sometimes they remain wounded because of the relationships they had with their staff, with the others who are leaving, because of the you've treated them and those who are leaving. So you'll be helping those who are left behind to quickly pick up and work. Because then when you do a redundancy, the effect is not just on those who are leaving. The effect is also on those who are being left behind. And depending on how you've treated their colleagues. I know an organization where it wasn't done too well, and those who are left couldn't work. They couldn't work because then I'm thinking, is it me tomorrow? I'm thinking, you mean these people don't even care about us as employees? I mean, what was so difficult for them to explain to us this thing? You know, that just leave it and send people away as is. So that's the reason. And of course, overall, if it is a Christian leader or a Christian organization, we will be doing it, I believe, the way the Lord wants us to do. Okay. Then, to crown all that up is you will then be improving the brand for your organization. Because whenever we do a redundancy, it's known everywhere. But when people go out with the story of or the testimony of, even though I have been declared redundant, I was treated well. I was treated with dignity. I was paid my dues. Maybe let me just say a bit on the payment of the dues. That the law expects you to pay at least 15 years pay for every completed year of service. That is what the law expects. At the bare minimum. You can pay more. Though, of course, if your reason for redundancy was cash, I don't know how much more you can pay.
The more will not be there. It cannot. There is no more to pay more. But I hear you, Sharon.
But if you have,
you can pay more.
If you have, you can pay more. And then the other question for us on how much is safe. Release as much as the information that will not have a negative repercussion on your company.
Thank you. Very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
what you're safe.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yes. What you're safe releasing.
Yes.
Release it.
Okay.
Yes. You wouldn't, for example, release and say, we declared Rose redundant because she wasn't working. You can't do that. But you would have the good story of, we're not doing too well as a company. We are so sorry we had to let these people go. We wish we could retain them. In fact, when the jobs are available, we'll get them back. You have to release what is safe for you as a company. Yeah.
All right.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that was about redundancy. Let me talk about termination and dismissal. Now, before you terminate, I'll talk about dismissal slightly later. Before you terminate, you must take an employee through a disciplinary process. And that disciplinary process depends on what mistake the employee has done. There are mistakes for which you can give a warning letter. I mean, you've come late this week. Verbal. Make sure you don't get late coming to the office again. Then it is repeated. You do a first warning letter. Another one, a second warning letter. Now, by the time you're coming to the third, it is to tell the person, kwaheri, ya kuonana, because you've given them opportunity. And let me just say this to the leadership listening to me today. Even when you give a verbal warning letter, put it in writing. You're not writing to the employee, but you're putting something written in the employee's file to say, on the 9th of September, I had a discussion with you about you're coming to the office late. And this is what we agreed that you would and then sign it and put it in the employee's file. That is important for reference. Then, if you have decided that you want to terminate an employee because of certain things they have done, the process you're supposed to do is give them an opportunity to be heard. Give them an opportunity to be heard. So the first thing you do is give them a show cause letter. A show cause letter to say, that's part of hearing them, to say that it has come to our attention that you have done and we wish you to explain to us the reasons why you did this before, or a disciplinary action will be taken against you. Give them time, 1 week, 4 days, whatever number. But of course, don't give someone 2 hours. You know, give something reasonable, at least something above 24 hours. So they do their writing and they bring it to you. Create a disciplinary committee to listen to this person. HR must be there as the secretary to the committee, because whatever is written will require to go into the file. Then have someone senior to chair, maybe a manager, maybe a supervisor, depending on how your organization is structured. Have the employee come, give them time again, maybe about 5 days to prepare, and say, we'll be listening to you on the 16th. And the law provides that they can come with whoever they wish to come with. Either a fellow employee, either someone out there, a lawyer, a union representative, all that is within the law. They can come. Listen to the employee. Listen objectively. See any areas where, that can help you even, not have pity, but understand the reason for which the employee did what they did. And then after that, make your decision. That is the process. And the cases that are lost in court are lost because that process was not followed.
Was not there.
Which I totally agree.
That's it.
And sometimes they say it could be 8, 9 processes, even if one is broken, even if you did 8,
the whole process
and one process wasn't done right.
Yes,
that's it.
Even half the process.
That
is how important it is to follow process. And therefore, to even save yourself, have it as a policy so that everybody can read and be led by it. Just in case we forget. Sometimes we forget.
You love to remind them again
and
again.
Just keep reminding. And even as you select the committee, as you begin the process, remind those who are within that process to know that this is how they are supposed to carry it out. Then, when you have separated with when you've terminated an employee, by the way, you pay them up to the last day. Actually, up to the last day they worked. And you also pay them in lieu of notice. Because you see, once you've decided to terminate an employee, then you can't tell them, I'm giving you 3 months notice.
Yeah. Not realistic.
Right.
That was termination. Can I start on summary dismissal?
All right.
Yes.
In just like 2 minutes.
Okay.
We how many minutes do you have?
We have about 5.
People are always saying, employees are always saying, when you begin this process, from
Yes.
employers and from my experience, that you're setting me up for a constructive dismissal. Do they have a point? Once an employee who's well versed with these processes sees that happening, the show cause letter, the warning letters, it's like, no, once they're terminated, they say, I was being set up for constructive dismissal.
Okay, let me explain that.
Yes.
When you begin from the letter you're doing to employee,
Yes.
it is a termination process.
Yes.
Constructive dismissal is where you call an employee. No, 2 things happen. First, you make working so difficult
For the
employees,
Yeah.
so impossible. You know, they can't. I mean, clearly you're saying go.
Yeah.
Because the employer has created a hostile work environment.
Yes.
That is one. Number 2, when you create that hostile environment, it makes resignation the best next thing.
Yes.
As opposed to waiting for
Like
you.
said, could you resign, please?
Yes.
Just
Toka.
resign.
Yes.
Enda.
And they say in Kiswahili what? Akufukuzaye?
Akwambi toka.
Ndio huyo sasa. So constructive dismissal. Number 2 is where you call an employee and say, we are actually going to terminate you.
Whoa.
Yeah, just resign.
Okay.
Just resign because we are just about to do it. That's constructive dismissal. Where really you've made it near impossible for this person to continue working anymore.
Okay.
And so you make them go. And the unfortunate thing is that when an employer is creating that hostile work environment, the employee is listening. They are noting. Sometimes they tape what you're telling them. I mean, all that they can be able to give a chronology of what happened to make the work environment extremely hostile.
Okay.
Even when they come before you as a supervisor or manager and you're telling them resign, you must go, they are no deaf.
Yeah.
They are hearing everything. And they could play it back to you and you have nothing to defend yourself.
Okay.
That is constructive dismissal.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I don't think we even have time
for this.
But
We can start. No, I'll start when we meet next week.
Yes.
We can then begin on the other parts that I haven't covered. Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes.
still on disciplinary committee.
Yes.
The importance of that, or even to an employee who's listening to us, an employer who's listening to us this morning, as opposed to one person making a decision on behalf of everything. What's the importance of that? And even for anyone who's starting up their own business, for example, Lumeanza, and you don't have that committee that is there, how do you go about making decisions? How do you go about terminating?
The creation of a committee is a legal provision.
Okay.
And you don't need a committee that is a standing committee. You could always form a committee when there's a case to be handled.
All right.
And if you're alone, say you're starting your own business, you don't have enough people to form a committee, you could get an outsourced service. Invite a HR practitioner to be part of your committee so that you then have a committee. And remember, a committee can be at least 3 or more. The reason why you have a committee, Terry, is so that this employee feels they have been given a proper level ground where it is not one person making a decision but several minds that have been put together. And we don't see things the same way. We see things differently. So I would be able to see an employee from my lenses, you see their employee from your lenses, another person from their lenses, and then we are able to have an objective discussion and say, is this really a termination case, or can we bring back this employee with some warning letter, or whatever it is we can be able to do. That would be very, very important.
All right.
Yes. And then also when you're terminating an employee based on performance, it is important that their supervisor is present in that committee.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Alright.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
important.
2 minutes to go to the top of the hour. Christians in the Marketplace is the program, and we're in studio with Sharon Kisire. It's HR Simplified.
Yes.
And it is a series that you cannot miss. And we are hoping that this will be the first documentation we're doing in the hope of many other documentations.
Many more.
You can go on YouTube, and Terry will be telling you how to
Yes.
be able to access this content again and again so that you can refresh your memories as an employee or as an employer. These things are gold.
Yeah.
Right.
This conversation
Thank
is
you.
good. I tell you, you'll be able to catch this conversation and many more on our YouTube channel, that is Truth FM Kenya. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're supporting us. To you who has been saying, can I go back and repeat that program? Yes, you can. You can be able to listen to it. You can be able to go back, and any other time, just be educated on these matters. You know, as we have learned this morning. But I want to say thank you so much, Sharon,
Thank
for
you.
joining us this morning.
Thank you.
This series is really amazing. I also cannot wait for us to continue with the other series that you talked about.
Yes.
Which is personal confidence.
Yes.
I'm waiting for that. Nimengoja sana.
Inakuja
Sana.
before the end of the year.
Yes.
Tell them to subscribe.
Yeah.
Subscribe so that you never
Alright.
miss any notification.
Yes, subscribe, hit that notification button, and you'll be able to catch all our other programs as well. We'll be making sure that at least we document and put them there,
Right.
so that you can always go back to it. But thank you so much. In just a bit, I'm going to be back here with Pastor Simeon. It's going to be amazing from 8 all the way to 9 a.m.